We have a new trailer for Avengers Endgame, and tickets are on sale now. And if you are listening to this podcast right now, it might be just too late. All that and more on Blockbuster Breakdown, which starts right now. All right, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Blockbuster Breakdown, episode 36. We have so much more Avengers content. It seems like more and more is coming every week as we got all the character posters last week, but we are officially in April. It is Avengers month. I'm sure that we're not going to get too much more new content, but nonetheless, me and Mike are chomping at the bit to discuss everything that came out this morning. As I said, I am your host, Liam Crowley, and joining me, as always, alongside myself on today's show is Mike Gillis. Mike, Avengers, how stoked are you?
I am super excited. You actually texted me first about this trailer. I wasn't aware of it until you texted me. I'm like, oh no, I must have seen that already. But then I'm like, oh crap, tickets came out today. So yeah, definitely very excited. I'm happy that we get to see a little bit more than maybe the first 15 minutes as these first couple of trailers have been showing us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into Avengers Endgame in just one moment. We're going to start with a box office recap, but as always, we like to remind you guys on Blockbuster Breakdown, we talk blockbuster movies, and we define blockbuster on this show as any movie that has that mainstream appeal, any movie that is typically based on extensive source material, a movie that gets the crowd pumped just from watching the trailers alone. When you see the trailer, when you see the teaser for this trailer, you have to say, I got to go see that right now. It's a movie where you buy your tickets 3 weeks in advance, as I did this morning. I'll get into that in just a little bit, but we're going to start with our box office recap. Coming in at number one from this past weekend is Dumbo, making $45.9 million in its opening weekend. Coming in at number two is Us, making $33.2 million, dropping 53%. Coming in at number three is Captain Marvel, making $20.6 million, dropping 40%. Coming in at number four, Unplanned, making $6.3 million in its opening weekend. And rounding out the top five, fitting as the movie is called, 5 Feet Apart, making $6.1 million, dropping 27%. Mike, we're probably not going to spend too much time on the box office, but after me reading you that top five, what stands out?
Well, it's cool to see. Well, not cool to see. I kind of expected Dumbo was going to be sticking up, but it's cool to see that Us is still, pretty up there. I'm happy about that, of course. It's going to keep on making money. I think by this point, is it the highest grossing horror movie yet still? Have we talked about this already?
I don't think it's the highest grossing horror yet, but it has made 174 worldwide on a $20 million budget.
Definitely pushing that limit there. I've heard some mixed things about Dumbo. I've heard that, people who've actually seen it, they enjoyed it, but some reviews are calling it kind of just like the very repetitive Tim Burton slog that he's been putting out recently. But it's still something I'm actually kind of interested to see. I love the original animated Dumbo, one of my favorite Disney films as a kid, so, maybe I'll give it a watch. But I think Endgame kind of blows anything else out of the water for me currently. And no surprise that Captain Marvel is still in the top five. It'll probably be there until Shazam comes out and push it down a little bit. Maybe it'll stay up there and push Unplanned 5 Feet Apart. Pet Sematary also comes out in the 5th, too. So,
That's
this
true.
week a lot of stuff's coming out. So it's definitely going to be a very different box office, our next news episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Dumbo, I don't think to anyone's surprise, is in the number one spot. Interestingly enough, $45.9 million in its opening weekend. That's not exactly a great number for these live-action Disney remakes. As we saw last year, Beauty and the Beast flirted with $200 million its opening weekend. I know it made just shy of that. And even Cinderella in its opening weekend made in the high 60s. And we all obviously know The Jungle Book crushed. And we do have two more live-action Disney releases coming this year with The Lion King and Aladdin. So I don't think that those movies have anything really to fear. I don't think The Lion King has anything to fear. It's such a classic, and I think it's going to make a ton of money.
Yeah.
I honestly think Lion King will make $200 million.
I still wouldn't call the live-action Lion King live-action. It's just
but you
animated
know what
differently.
I mean.
I understand.
It's ultra-realistic animation.
Yes.
But one thing I will say is I think that maybe Aladdin could be a little scared after looking at these Dumbo numbers because It's not really getting a lot of positive reception, especially with Will Smith's portrayal of the genie. They say the CGI looks weird, so that movie could suffer. I don't think it'll suffer too much, but Dumbo kind of has a cool premise in the sense of who's involved. Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito, their first movie together, all three of them since Batman Returns, often regarded as a cult classic. People regard it as one of the better Batman movies ever made. It's highly underappreciated.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that yet either, but I'm just thinking about that now because it's also Tim Burton films. He probably did that on purpose, wanting to work with those actors again.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have the chance to go out and see Dumbo, I actually have heard good things. Colin Farrell's also in it. Joseph Gatt plays the villain, and the animation does look pretty good. So Dumbo, I think, does deserve a little bit more money. We'll see how it does in its second weekend, but as you said, heavy hitters this weekend with Pet Sematary and Shazam. Both, I think, are going to crush at the box office. And speaking of box office, ticket sales for Avengers Endgame have crushed. I am so excited to talk about this because this is kind of a story I felt I was involved in because I knew tickets were going on sale on April 2nd. I didn't know if it was going to be a midnight release or a next morning release. It turns out it was a next morning release at 9 a.m. I set my alarm to buy tickets. I slept in a little bit, and next thing you know, they're on sale, and people are going nuts. When I bought my tickets for my favorite theater back home to go see with my friends on the Thursday night release, and we got the last 4 consecutive seats available. That's how crazy it was, and I bought them about 2 hours after they went on sale. And I'm going to read a little article here that comes from the New York Post. And it goes, 3 weeks before its release, Avengers Endgame made a super splash Tuesday with record ticket sales and a new video released by Marvel. Mobile retailer Atom reported the record for Endgame selling 3 times more tickets in the first hour of pre-sales than Avengers Infinity War did last year, according to Deadline. Fandango also reported record sales for the Russo brothers directed sequel, which opens April 26th. Marvel's announcement that tickets were being sold was retweeted 10,000 times in a mere 12 minutes. And another thing I saw on Twitter, going off of this, tweeted by Fandom at GetFandom, Avengers Endgame becomes the biggest pre-sale movie ever in the first 24 hours. But here's the kicker. It did it in just 6 hours. Mike, we expected ticket sales to be crazy. Did you expect it to be this nuts?
You know what? It makes sense. You know, it's not out of the realm of unexpected to me. This movie is gonna be big. It's gonna be bigger than big. I think it's gonna be most likely the highest-grossing movie of all time. I think it's gonna knock Avatar out of its spot. I think it's been so much is leading to this. The marketing's getting pushed a little bit more here and there. And if this is any sign to it, I think we're gonna see some change in that highest-grossing list. I think this is gonna finally take Avatar down. It's insane how fast these tickets are selling. Like I don't have a ticket yet, and I don't know when I see it. I'm probably gonna see it in school because I have to be here, but I will see it that week. It's not gonna be like Us, where it takes me forever to see it. I'm gonna see this the first week it comes out.
Yeah, this is what we call a priority movie, a priority film. I've said it before on this show. Priority movies, the ones you got to see opening weekend. It's different with, like you said, with movies like Us, where it's like, oh, that sounds really good. I think I'm going to go check it out when I have free time. It's like, no, you make free time for Avengers Endgame because you don't want to be one of those people that hears it's good and hears stuff that happens and then decides to go see it. You want to go see it opening weekend. You want to be a part of cinematic history. Like, that's not a hyperbole whatsoever. This movie is the biggest cinematic event of the century, of my lifetime so far, maybe of my life in general. Never before has 21 movies built up to this one final installment. And I know people will say, you know, how much does every movie really factor in? You got to see Ant-Man to see this. You got to see Ant-Man and the Wasp. I would recommend seeing all 3 Cap movies. I would heavily recommend seeing all 3 Avengers movies, especially Infinity War. That's kind of a must. If you want to appreciate Iron Man's complete arc, you're going to want to watch the Iron Man trilogy. If you want to appreciate all that Thor has been through, you even want to see Thor: The Dark World. If you want to appreciate where the Hulk was, where William Hurt was as Thunderbolt Ross. You want to watch The Incredible Hulk if you want to appreciate Rocket Raccoon and all that he's lost and all that Nebula has been through. You want to see both Guardians movies. This is not one of those situations where it's, oh, all movies are under the Marvel banner, but you don't really need to see them. You don't need to see them, but you really want to see them if you want to experience and appreciate this movie to its full capacity. Would you agree, Mike?
Yeah. I would agree with that. I'm actually, when I go home from Easter break, a couple of my friends here at school have not seen every MCU movie, and I own every single one on Blu-ray. So I will be bringing them all, and we're going to watch a phase a day leading up to Endgame. We're going to get them all watched in, I think, the chronological order, not the release date order. But I do think every single movie is necessary to understand, because this movie, even, I mean, I'm making speculation. I think we're going to see everyone. I think there's going to be a point where our dusted heroes come back and fight, and everyone's going to be interacting with everyone. So I think it's going to be necessary to see every movie to understand how these characters interact and why they interact with each other in certain ways. Especially, I think, Civil War, because in the new trailer we see Cap and Tony shaking hands. I don't think they've seen each other since Civil War. Is that correct?
They have not. They have not shared screen time since Civil War.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a big deal. So I think every movie is very necessary to watch. This is the end of the cosmic saga. It's the end of the Infinity Saga.
Infinity Saga, yeah.
That's what they call it.
One thing I do want to touch on before we move on to discussing the trailer, which basically has completely new footage, is that, yeah, you want to watch all the movies to appreciate this, because I've heard people tell me, oh, it was so easy for Thanos to get all 6 stones. Like, that didn't seem very realistic. Those people don't realize he spent a lot of movies trying to get the stones. The entire first Avengers movie is based on him sending Loki to go get the Space Stone, and he fails. So even though people might regard as him getting all the stones in Infinity War being kind of easy, it was not easy leading up. So that's why you kind of want to watch all the other movies to really appreciate where we are now. And yeah, I would highly recommend. Today is April 2nd. This movie comes out April 26th. So that's 24 days. You do a movie a day. You got plenty of time if you start right now, if you are not yet caught up. And even if you're not caught up, I know this movie is going to crush no matter what. People are going to go crazy to see it. And I will say, before we get into the trailer, one last bit. I am fully confident that this movie is going to break the opening weekend box office record set by Infinity War. I think it's going to make close to $280 million and I only say that because they're really pushing this movie to be seen in IMAX. I bought my tickets in IMAX and they were $20 a piece. That's a lot for a movie. I can't do that every weekend, $5 movies are the ones you see where it's like, oh, I want to check it out, but probably for cheap. This is one of those movies I want to experience it the way it was meant to be experienced, so I'm willing to fork over the big money for it. And I feel like a lot of people are going to have that mentality, and that's going to boost its box office. Flirting with $300 million opening weekend, I don't think it will get there. And one last point, I only don't think it's going to break Avatar's record because Avatar is $3.7 billion. Infinity War is around $2.1 billion. That means it would almost have to double to beat Avatar. And as much as I want it to do that, I just don't know if it has the legs to be in theaters for close to 9 months, which is what Avatar was in theaters for.
Yeah, true.
All right, we're going to move on now to the Avengers Endgame trailer. This wasn't even called a trailer. It was called Avengers Endgame First Look, which really entices me because on first read of that, you're like, wait, this isn't the first look. We've gotten 2 teasers already and a TV spot. That kind of makes me think, wait, we really didn't see anything in those previous amounts of footage. This is really our first look, and that gets me so excited. This clocks in at just around a minute, and we get all new footage. Mike, after watching this teaser trailer, which I actually alerted you of, I'll pat myself on the back for that one as a little bit of breaking some scoops. What was a scene that stood out to you, and what did this change in terms of your excitement for Endgame?
I was happy to see. I think the scene that stood out to me was, I'm not happy to see it, but when Thanos he's like, oh, you'll come crawling back to me or something like that. I think it's very interesting because that kind of changes what I was thinking this movie was going to be. I didn't think we are going to see Thanos until at the very, very, very end when they finally get a bunch of stuff together because they're going to fight him. But it looks like they're going to see him before they even go back in time. It looks like so. there might be more Thanos than I thought in this movie. I didn't think we were gonna see him too much. I think that we're gonna he's gonna be like a thought in the back of everyone's head. So it's definitely changing my mind on that part.